Today, how a humble black and white video game became one of the most valuable brands in entertainment, from TV shows, trading cards and movies, to a mobile game that sold last month for billions of dollars and generated a stack of controversy along the way. I'm Michael Thompson from Fear and Greed Business News, and I'm joined by Stefan from alts.co, the alternative market research you need to be a better investor. Stefan, hello.
Hello, nice to be here.
I'm thrilled to be talking about Pokemon today because, to be honest, I was part of the Pokemon generation. I played it on the Game Boy as a kid. I collected the trading cards. I watched the TV show. I dabbled in the world of Pokemon Go a few years ago when it became the phenomenon that it did in about 2016 or so. So this is very exciting to be discussing this today. But this thing is huge. Pokemon is huge, and it has a price tag to match. Take us back to the beginning of it all, where it all began.
The first thing you need to know about Pokemon is that it's one of the longest running successful brands, really, of all time. I mean, it is thriving today, and it came out first in 1996 with Pokemon for Game Boy. So like you said, you're right, it was black and white. And it probably wasn't all that exciting, but it definitely got off to a great start and never really let up. It became so much more than video games. That's what's fascinating about Pokemon compared to other brands, is just how broad it is, right? I mean, it's video games, there's the main series, and there's the spin-offs, and there's spin-offs galore. You've got the trading cards, which are a huge topic in their own right. One of the most interesting alternative asset classes out there right now. You've got TV shows, you've got movies that are still coming out today, toys, merchandise. It just goes on and on. It's one of the largest brands that, a lot of people kind of thought maybe it might have faded over time, but no, as far as we can tell, it is the number 7 basically biggest brand in the world at about $11 billion in 2024. So it is thriving right now.
It's got this enduring appeal, and I wonder whether it's becoming almost an intergenerational thing, because just speaking from experience, I actually find it quite gratifying to have something that I can play with my son now, where I'm a bit of an expert in this, and I'm kind of teaching him about Pokemon, and he's learning about it, and he's teaching me, and it feels like it is now just moving on and on and on and going through the generations.
Yeah, I think it's the nostalgia factor, right? We talk about this a lot with collectibles and a lot of the kind of more esoteric alternative assets out there. But the power of nostalgia across generations is huge. Like, you're right. I mean, there's entire generations now of people that basically grew up with Pokemon and have kids of their own. And so that love and that affinity doesn't go away. And I think that's part of why it's thriving.
I wonder the impact of Pokemon Go. So I mentioned that in the intro, this mobile game that sold for billions last month, and it was an entirely new way of looking at Pokemon, and basically almost a reinvention of the way that people interacted with Pokemon. It was launched in 2016, and it's not an understatement. It's not an overstatement, rather, to say that it was a phenomenon and it took the world by storm.
I'll never forget where I was when it first came out. I was in Santa Monica at the time, and this was the weekend it launched back in 2016. And this was like the first time that like AR, right? Like augmented reality had ever kind of like hit mainstream. Like, there was a few other apps and things and stuff like that you could do. But that weekend back in 2016, I mean, there were just people just, staring into their phones, chasing, fictitious like digital creatures all around Los Angeles. I'll never forget it. I mean, it was like something else. Funny anecdote with that weekend. That was the same weekend that it was either Bird or Lime, the e-scooters, right, launched in LA. And so on this one same weekend, I remember you had, like people like chasing Pokemon, and then people scooting around on these scooters, which for the first time, like no one had ever seen before, right? I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like we are living in the future, right? Now, later, the scooters would kind of get regulated away, and Pokemon died down a little bit, although it's still very strong. But that was a hell of a moment.
Yeah, because in the end, it goes back to the very basis of what Pokemon is about, which is that the entire principle of it is that there are they're creatures, and that your job as the person playing the game is to go around and collect them. So it taps into this idea of collectibles and wanting to collect them all. So it's quite addictive in that sense. And the augmented reality nature of Pokemon Go, it was a new way of playing games and using your phone. And you saw it happening around the world on every street in every city. There was a stampede in Taiwan when there was a particularly rare Pokemon appeared on the street, and there is footage of hundreds and hundreds of people just storming the street trying to capture this thing using their phones. It was a really strange time.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny because like the developer Niantic, they'd had a couple of AR games before that. They were kind of a little known developer. They had created this one game like Ingress, and it was kind of like the predecessor for Pokemon Go's location based design, but it never really took off until Pokemon Go, and Pokemon Go obviously took off in a tremendous way. It was incredibly unique, but it really, showed its value in terms of the amount of data that it produced, right? So there's the revenue side, there's the direct revenue side what Pokemon Go makes, but then there's also just the amount of data that is produced by people going to places, chasing Pokemon, capturing them all over the world. It's a treasure trove of data. And that is one of the biggest assets that the company has, and part of why it's sold for $3.5 billion.
And that is also then part of the controversy around it, because there were a lot of privacy concerns as well, weren't there, around the collection of all of this data and the fact that people were willingly taking their phones into places, all kinds of places that were off limits essentially to any kind of Google Street View or anything along those lines. This is inside people's homes and into companies and all of these, and scanning the scenery. And there were concerns about privacy.
It was more than actually just that, though. That there was like when it first launched, there was some people had discovered that the permissions that the game was asking for, it asked for too much information, and no one really thought twice of it. So it actually asked for access to your entire Google account, calendar, Gmail, search history if you use Chrome. They later like fixed that or patched that up, or I don't know if it was a mistake, honest mistake or what, but that did go away. But I mean, yeah, the treasure trove of location data is absolutely tremendous. And so, when Pokemon Go, it recently sold, as we'll talk about in a moment, you could argue this sale was the largest transfer of location based data and behavioral data, from one country to another country in the history of humanity. It's a pretty bold statement, but it's hard to think of anything that would be bigger than this.
That is huge. And so, of course, this was part of the $3.5 billion sale from by Niantic of the Pokemon Go game, all the data that comes with it to Scopely. Now, the interesting part of that as well is who owns Scopely.
Yeah. So Scopely, back in 2023, basically, so Scopely is a company that they may have great intentions. That's all fine and dandy, but they were purchased in 2023 by Saudi Arabia, specifically the massive sovereign wealth fund that the Saudis have, which invests in all sorts of stuff, including a lot of stuff we talk about, a lot of alternative assets, sports teams, sports leagues, the whole nine yards. But this sovereign wealth fund bought Scopely in 2023, and Scopely had just bought Niantic for $3.5 billion. So effectively, yeah, the Saudis, they own this data now,
which is just it. It was one of the larger acquisitions as well within computer games and data. It puts it up there in the rankings of pretty significant acquisitions.
From what we can tell, it's the 10th largest video game sale of all time. Which is definitely saying something, but it's actually coming at an interesting time. I mean, Niantic, I think, kind of sees the writing on the wall, reading the tea leaves a little bit. Gaming is kind of slowing a little bit, right? Gaming startups have definitely slowed. So, I can't blame Niantic for selling. They're certainly doing it at a pretty good time, I think. But yeah, funding for games is down. Games in general a little shaky. The Switch 2 from Nintendo has had a kind of like a shaky release, and so I think timing wise, they definitely nailed it. You can't argue against that.
All right, well, that's the Pokemon Go part of the brand, but as you say, the entire kind of Pokemon phenomenon as a whole, it puts it within the top 10 most valuable licensed brands, kind of higher than Mattel and Barbie and all that kind of thing as well. What's the future then hold for Pokemon?
Look, if you think Pokemon's going away, I wouldn't make that bet. I think that anything that has this kind of power of nostalgia, like the future, I think seems pretty bright. They've got a new movie coming out. They've got a new Pokemon Legends game that's going to be for the Switch 2, which is coming out in a couple months on Nintendo's new Switch 2. There's a second Detective Pikachu film. It's a powerhouse brand. I mean, it's up there with a lot of the largest, most beloved brands in the world. The Star Wars is, it's definitely not going away. And I think it's got that generational appeal. And I think it'll last many, many generations. I think that this is definitely one that's stood the test of time and will continue to do so.
You mentioned the trading card game. This is the last point I wanted to make with you, Stefan, is because the trading card game has become, as you say, quite a collectible. And I've got a very, very much vested interest in this because back in 1999, right, I
know where this is going. Go ahead.
I had a stellar collection of Pokemon cards. Oh. I still have them, and they are all of the holographic ones, the really kind of collectible ones, including the big one, Charizard, which is the holographic Charizard. I still have that from 1999. I can find every single card in my collection except for the one that's worth potentially a fortune. I feel like, there's that guy who accidentally threw out the hard drive containing all of the Bitcoin and has spent the last kind of decade searching through landfill for it.
Yeah.
I feel like that guy. I know that this card is worth somewhere. I could be sitting on a gold mine, but for the life of me, I can't find it.
Yeah, good luck, man. I'm sorry. Generational wealth is slipping through your fingers, man. There's a lot of horror stories like this. I think it kind of took everyone by surprise, right? Like, just how valuable these cards would remain over time. And also, like, just even within the trading card general kind of like market, like sports cards and what have you, it's actually proven itself like stronger even than sports cards. So, yeah, I can't say I predicted this one, like fully, but it's definitely got the scarcity. It's got the media hype, right? So, like, the most valuable card in the world is owned by like Logan Paul, who just adds to that, like, refuels that hype. Keep looking, man. It's worth your time to look, man. There's actually companies out there now. This is funny, but there's companies out there that'll help you like find, like dig through landfills and like find like hard drives with Bitcoin and like Charizard cards and all that stuff. They take like, I think 70% of the findings if they find it. But yeah, I wish you the best, man. I mean that.
Yeah, well, if I turn up in a new BMW next time you see me, you will know that I found it. Thanks very much, Stefan.
Thank you. See you next time.
To find out more, head to alts.co, sign up to the newsletter. This episode is actually based on an edition of that newsletter, and start learning about the future of alternative investing. I'm Michael Thompson from Fear and Greed, business news to keep you in front. Thanks for your company.